It's schedule release day. How many primetime games will the Rams have in 2025? And the Rams are going to London. Also, what is the Rams offseason grade? Free agency, the draft. How well did the Rams do? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Bramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do me a huge favor, join the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. Just past 17,000 subs, trying to get to 18K for the schedule release. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 10th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we have everything we know about the Rams schedule release. We've got a big update on a international game that they will be participating in. Also, what primetime games do we want to see? And PFF has also released their offseason grade for the Rams. We'll get into that. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Travis, so tonight, 5 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. We will find out where the Rams will be playing, when, times, primetime games, all that good stuff. But we've already got a pretty big update on a game that we kind of speculated the Rams would be involved in, and that is the Rams are going to London to face the Jaguars in their first international game since 2019. It's on October 19th. It's 9:30 a.m. Eastern on NFL Network. The Rams' first international game since 2019 when they did beat the Bengals 24-10 at Wembley. So, yeah, that's exciting stuff. You're a part of that. It's kind of a weird schedule quirk. We'll kind of talk about how you kind of make it easier on the Rams. But initial thoughts on the Rams going to London.
Yeah, so after the announcement that they were headed to London to take on the Jags, my first thought was that means my pregame show starts at 4:30 in the morning on that week. So that was my first thought, is that is a very early start. That is an incredibly early West Coast start time for Rams fans out here. But, you know, everybody goes over there. Like you mentioned, the Rams have not been over there for quite some time. Once you get Jacksonville on your schedule, once you're playing the AFC South, it's just a matter of time until you got to go make that trip. So it is what it is. You know, it's a chance to go play a bad team, in front of an international audience. But I think it not only informs that they're going to go over there, it kind of gives you an idea of the week before and the week after. I think it's very, very likely that the Rams schedule the week before that will be one of their road teams in the East. So that's Carolina, that's Philadelphia, that's Atlanta, Baltimore, potentially. These are the teams that I think are one of those is exceptionally likely to be scheduled the week before they go to Jacksonville. And then, of course, the week after in London is going to be their bye week. So you kind of have an idea of what the middle part of that schedule is. That's weeks, it's 6, 7, and 8. They get the bye right smack in the middle of the season, right at the end of October, which is, I think if you got to pick it, that's probably where you'd want it, kind of as close to the middle as possible. But not a huge surprise that they got sent to London. The only thing that I thought that they might miss it is they're scheduled to go to Australia next year to play a game. So I thought maybe they might not send you out internationally 2 years in a row, but not so much. We're gonna get an early start against the Jags.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. The fact that the Rams are being shipped out to Australia the following season kind of made me think that maybe they won't have them go to London. I'm all cool with the Rams being like the international ambassador team for like Australia and places like that. So it's like, do you really need them in London too, especially when the Jaguars are basically playing there a couple of games every season. So that was a little bit of a kind of what I was hoping for, but I still thought, okay, look, the fact that it's been a while, 6 years, that there was a pretty decent chance. But you mentioned something that I also think is going to happen too. I mean, we saw in 2017 when the Rams went to London, they played the Jaguars the week before. And then in 2019, the Rams, they played the Falcons in Atlanta 1 week before taking on the Bengals in London. So once again, you're going to leave for London, hopefully after you play Atlanta, and that kind of cuts down a little bit on the travel. But yeah, I mean, I think for this Rams team, you're it's kind of a different year when you're a legitimate all-in Super Bowl contender, because all these games mean something in a schedule that doesn't have 162 games or 82 games. Yeah. Every game is important. So yeah, look, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the London games as a West Coast fan, just because I always have to kind of end up rewatching the game. It feels like, it's like the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter or stuff like that. The same token, when it's your team, I think you do kind of make the effort to kind of get up and make it happen. As far as the broadcasting thing, man, I kind of, it might mess with your sleep for a couple of days. You'll have to, I mean, at least it's not like the Dodgers in Tokyo where it really messed up casters for like a month. But yeah. You got
it's not quite as bad as Asia, Japan, or China, or Korea, or some of the places that these other teams have gone. But it's a little bit of an adjustment. I think one of the things that is good news if you're a Rams fan, and the everydayers certainly know this, because this is something that we've talked about a lot here on Locked On Rams, is Sean McVay is really good at this. Sean McVay is really good at for lack of a better word, off-schedule things, whether it's being relocated for a playoff game because of the fires, whether it's being, in a temporary location, whatever it is. The Rams have had some weird stuff where, they're supposed to go to Mexico a few years ago. That got canceled because of a Shakira concert that went bad. And all of a sudden you've got wildfires up in Thousand Oaks and they couldn't practice, so they've had a lot of practice and a lot of repetition at doing things that, quote unquote, off schedule. The Rams have been really good on the road under Sean McVay, so I anticipate they'll be fine. I think that the Rams are set up to have a great season, and this is just life in the NFL. You're going to have to go play these international games every once in a while. I think what's interesting too, D-Mac, is it does feel like we're getting closer and closer to having teams over there maybe on a regular basis. I don't know if it's going to be like Jacksonville has kind of a split home between London and Jacksonville, or whether they go over there full time. But when you see what Pittsburgh's going to play 2 games in a row in the UK. They're going to play in Ireland. They're going to play in London the following week. So they're over there. No, not Pittsburgh, Minnesota. I'm sorry. They're over there 2 weeks in a row. This is the modern NFL. I mean, you get Brazil and Spain and Germany and Ireland and Australia next year. So guys are going all over, and it's going to be like being on a short week, right? Where you just got to have to deal with it once or twice a season. And that's life when you go to play these international games.
Yeah, for sure. And as you point out, I mean, there are teams I think have it a little worse. The good thing for the Rams is they're not losing a home game. And then that's kind of the number one thing for me, is that you still maximize your home games. It's nothing like that from a detractor standpoint. It is interesting, though, when you see graphics that have the Rams second as far as miles traveled. They'll be at 34,832 projected miles. That's behind the Chargers at 37,086. And I guess if you subtract the 11,000 miles or whatever it is to get to London, it's a little more normal there. But I don't know. When you hear that, what do you think? I mean, I think, wow. I mean, just being a West Coast team essentially. But yeah, London definitely inflates that.
Yeah, I was going to say the team that leads in travel is always a West Coast team. It's going to be the Chargers. It's going to be the Rams. It's going to be Seattle. It's going to be San Francisco. And, like we said, the Chargers, I think, have the Brazil game this year. So while the Rams are going to London, the Chargers are headed to Brazil. They've both got long road trips. They're growing the game. We'll see. I've never been to one of these international games, so I can't really speak to the vibe in there. My radio co-host, DeMarco Farr, has traveled over to London to cover a bunch of these, and he's kind of told me that there's a nice little buzz that you get. And you hear baseball teams talk about this a lot, not so much in football because you don't really do road trips where you're gone for a while, but this is one where you're gone for a while. The team can kind of come together, get to know each other, kind of build those team bonds that we know can be so important along the way. So, I think it's what you make of it. If you can go over there and look, go over there and win, right? Because if you go over there and lose, that sucks. But if you go over there and lose to the Jacksonville Jags, and I get maybe, who knows, maybe Travis Hunter will bring something there that we haven't seen to that team before. But just go over there, win the game, come back, get your rest, and then pick up and take off into that second part of the season.
Exactly. The bye week too, you kind of get right with that. I think it's kind of the big question. I think it's for fans, especially West Coast. I mean, 6:30 a.m. start. It's, do you go to sleep and then wake up at 3 to start crushing some beers and get that tailgate ready, or do you just stay up the whole night? I mean, what's the move there?
Dude, I'm an old man. 6 o'clock in the morning is not that bad for me because I go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. Like I am an early riser, but 4:30 for the pregame show. That's going to be, I do it from here at the studio at ESPN LA, and I live about an hour from here. So that's a 3 o'clock leave. It's a 2:30 wake up. That's an early start, but that's all right. It beats real work. That's for sure.
So are you a coffee guy, an energy drink guy? Like, are you gonna kind of double up? What are you up? What are you about?
I'm about this. I'm about the coffee day after day after day. So I'll make it. It'll be good. I get the Sunday back. I can watch a full slate of NFL games, which I typically don't get to do. Right? I'm usually so. I'm working on the Rams game on any given Sunday, so this will be nice to be done by 9:30 in the morning, done by 11 or so with my post-game show, and I can dig into the rest of the games for the rest of the Sunday.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a Coke Zero guy. I forgot maybe some Capri Suns if I'm really tired.
Hey,
but,
no judgment.
No, but good stuff. But coming up next, how many primetime games will the Rams have in 2025? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
The NBA playoffs are cranking up. Guys are dropping left and right, but they're in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, what up Celtics, and can't-miss moments. So whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on that action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live as it's happening. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And you know that you pay a lot of attention to these games, right? You know who's hot and who's not. So which of these guys are showing up in the biggest moments? How could you be tracking this? How could you take advantage of this? With FanDuel, right? So if you've got a read on a player who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? And how about this? A $200 bonus bet added to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits. Sounds pretty good to me. Who had Indiana advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals? Who has Indiana and OKC in the NBA Finals? That could happen for sure. So why not go get in on it for yourself? And if you're new to FanDuel, it is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, boom, $200 in bonus bets. Go do it. Have fun. Win some money. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching, listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. We got a lot of new viewers recently, a lot of new listeners. So if you're new to the channel, join that Everyday Listeners Club. Just watch or listen to an episode Monday through Friday, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, here in our second segment, we're talking about the schedule more, and we kind of love to do this every year, and that is try to predict the primetime games that the Rams will have. Bonus points if you hit on TNF, MNF, or Sunday Night Football. Yeah. But just to kind of look at last season, you had 6: Lions, Vikings, Dolphins, Eagles, 49ers, Cardinals. 2023, you had just 2: Bengals and Saints. This year, not only are the Rams expected to be one of the best teams in the NFC, expected to be a possible Super Bowl contender, but you also have games on the schedule that just look and feel like nationally televised.
Sure do.
All-time kind of stuff, really. And I think that you're probably looking at a minimum of 4 and possibly 6. So we'll start with the locks, and the easiest lock, you already know what I'm about to say, is Detroit, right? You know you're going to get the Detroit Lions game. It feels like a Sunday Night Football game.
Yep.
Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
You got Dan Campbell, Sean McVay, the great games that these teams have played. It's one thing to have good storylines heading into a matchup, but I think the number one reason why this is a lock to be a nationally televised Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football type of game is this game is always delivered. I mean, it's always come down to the wire in the fourth quarter. We saw the Rams lose a tight one in the playoffs. If Stafford hits Nakua or they have better success in the red zone, they probably win that game. But bottom line, that to me is going to be a lock to be a primetime game.
Yeah, I think that's one you can kind of put in pen. Whether it's a Monday night or a Sunday night, I'm with you. I don't think it'll be a Thursday night. I think it's too good of a game to put on Thursday night. So I think Sunday and Monday are exceptionally likely there. I think two more, Doug, that you can kind of sort of take to the bank that are going to be. So one on a Sunday or Monday is going to be San Francisco, because San Francisco and the Rams are always on a Sunday or Monday. That's just one of those rivalries. So I think you can kind of put that in the exceptionally likely. And the other one that feels kind of Thursday nighty for me, one that I think is going to land in primetime for sure, but this feels more like a Sunday night game than it does a Sunday or Monday night game. Cooper Kupp's return to LA. Cooper Kupp coming back to LA with the Seattle Seahawks, I think, is almost a sure thing. That is such a big storyline. Obviously, something could happen with injuries or whatnot, so I wouldn't be shocked if it were relatively early in the season to make sure that guys are at least, try to hedge your bets, that guys are healthy a little bit. But I think both of those are very likely, and certainly at least one of those two land in primetime.
I agree with that one. I got both those on my list. The Cooper Kupp one, I think, feels if you need to TNF it, that'd be cool for sure. Yeah. But Monday night could work as well. I don't know if you saw this too. The Rams gave Cooper Kupp's number 10 to Bryn Covey.
I did see that.
Special team guy they got. Come on, they move on so quick. The texts are already going green. The texts are already going green from Cooper Kupp. But I mean, geez, that's I think give it a year.
Well, no, he's still in the league. So if he were he were out of the league, like Aaron Donald, I understand that you just kind of say, no, we're going to find you another number. He's on another team, right? I think that when he's done, I think 10 comes off the books. I think that you're going to see that number be retired at some point.
Moving on too quick. I mean, I'm waiting for them to announce that him and Stafford are starting a podcast, Nine and Dime, and he's just going to be the new co-host of it. I mean, it just feels a little quick to me, a little rushed.
It is fast. I'm not arguing that with you. I agree with you there, but I don't know, man. I'm okay with just full speed ahead, and we'll catch you later. We'll make it all right down the road. We don't have to make it right now.
Yeah, I see it, but I think that I for sure think the Seahawks, the subplot there is too good. Also, Sam Darnold's first time facing the Rams since the NFC wildcard round. Could be interesting. I mean, that always plays up. Another one we got to talk about is one that we thought possibly could have been a season opening primetime game. Is that's at Philly, the Philadelphia Eagles defending the Rams 13 yards away from a stunning road victory in the snow that would have set up an NFC championship game against the Commanders last season. So there's the one, we played them close. I'm doing the we thing. I tried that. That's 3 months. I had a 3-month streak where I didn't use we to refer to the Rams. So now we're back at 0. We'll start a new streak. Okay. I don't want to be the we guy when talking about their team. I don't play for this team, but still the Rams played them very well on the road. And then they're just going to be two really, really good teams. So I think that feels like a Sunday night football game to me.
I do too. I think that is another. The Detroit and Philly games are the two that I think you can absolutely book as Sunday night or Monday night games. They're important games. They're big games. They're games that could determine seeding in the NFC. They're games that could be playoff previews. They're games that have history. There's backstory to both of these, like you just mentioned. If you said to me, pick two that you are dead positive certain will be primetime games, it's Philly and Detroit. I think you're right.
Yeah, you mentioned preview, right? I mean, anytime you can kind of get a Super Bowl preview, I think that is a reason to have two teams in primetime. And a sneaky one, this one I kind of go back and forth because it does.
I know where you're going. I know where you're
Baltimore,
going.
Right?
For
Baltimore.
Sure.
Like it feels like one that you would say, okay, maybe some. I mean, first of all, let's just point out the fact too that last year's game was one of the best in the entire season. You had Matthew Stafford and Lamar Jackson combining for over 600 yards. You had the rain. It was a shocking performance to some that the Rams went in there and almost won that game. And then the last time you faced two was a close game. The last two matchups have been settled by 7 points. So one, these two teams have close games when they play each other. It could be a Super Bowl preview, but then also too, if I see this one as an afternoon game, I'm not going to be shocked, but it's a sneaky one.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I would put third on my list as far as very, very likely. I think Detroit and Philly are both 1 and 1A. I think Baltimore is next, and I think those two NFC opponents that we talked about, San Francisco and Seattle. And it's funny, Doug, the more we talk about this, it just feels like maybe San Francisco is getting pushed further and further down the list. Because maybe they're not going to be as strong of a team as we've seen in the last few years, or at least on paper, it kind of looks like they might not be. And the Cup thing is a little too juicy not to put in prime time, at least potentially. But yeah, it just feels like the history. We look, you mentioned a couple of the games. There was also the Monday night game in the Coliseum a million years ago where Lamar Jackson came in and just ran up and down the Rams all night long. That was the first time I'd ever seen Lamar Jackson in person. And it was just shocking to watch him and how good he was. By the way, the Rams were a pretty good team that year. It's not like they just stomped a Jeff Fisher-led Rams team. That was a good Rams team that Jackson did that to. The Ravens show up in primetime a lot. I think the Rams under McVay have been a pretty steady performer on primetime. So I think that's very high. And this is why I think that 6 is not totally out of the question for the Rams. I think that if the number's 4.5, I think that's where Vegas would set the number. And I think I'd take the over because 5 feels very likely. And I don't even think 6 is out of the realm of possibility.
For sure. Yeah, I think that is certainly a one that you could see for sure. Yeah. I think the 49ers one is interesting to me too, as you pointed out, that
it's just there every year. That's the Niner thing isn't because it's a particularly great game this year. It feels like San Francisco's backed up a little bit, but Rams Niners feels like it's always a primetime game. That could be a Thursday nighter too.
Yeah, I totally think so as well. I think that the schedule, the way it plays out, another thing too, they're breaking out these new rivalry uniforms.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of feels like, remember Color Rush? Of course, sure. Color Rush, but yeah, sure. The Color Rush from, it almost feels like, okay, those were Thursday night football games. Maybe that's a TNF game. They always kind of have it at Levi's for that one as well. Yeah. So there's a possibility in that one. Here's my sneaky one. And last year, I was laughed at. Ridiculed in the comment section saying, what are you talking about? Why would you have Rams Dolphins on Monday Night Football?
I know.
I felt it. I woke up, it was 4:00 in the morning, and for some reason it just came to me, and it was the case. So I think my sneaky one this year is Rams Buccaneers. Buccaneers are a fun team. Baker Mayfield, you've got an offensive fireworks show potentially between those two teams. Buccaneers could be a sneaky, really good team. Baker Mayfield really had a career year from a statistical standpoint. You added Emeka Egbuka. You have the subplot of Baker playing for the Rams is like a tiny one there. And sometimes you want to give the Super Bowl contending team kind of a showcase game that they're going to be good on national TV, and that could be maybe one for the Rams. I see the doubt in your face, but it's the same look I saw last year.
That's why I'm not jumping up and down on you. You called the Dolphins last year, and I looked at you like you got frogs on your face, and so I'm not doing it this year with Tampa. You like the Florida primetime game. What can I tell you? You are a fan of the Rams playing a Florida team.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
In primetime. The Bucks, I don't know, man. I just don't know if they're sexy enough for that. But look, everybody gets a few of these games. SoFi, refresh my memory. Is that here or is that?
Yes, it's at SoFi.
Okay, so they love putting SoFi on TV. SoFi looks great on TV. So if you're going to put them on TV in Philly, if you're going to put them on TV in Baltimore, and we both think that those are exceptionally likely, you're going to want to get them on TV, primetime standalone TV in the SoFi a time or two. So, that's certainly a possibility.
It's possible. We'll see. But I think the locks for sure, just to kind of settle this, and we'll hit it real quick. The next one is definitely Detroit, definitely Philly, definitely San Francisco. Those are a guaranteed 3. Then Seattle and Baltimore. I think I feel better about Seattle than I do Baltimore because of the Cooper Cup and the division thing. The Bucks may be a sneaky one. I mean, I'm going to include that in that list. We'll see. But I think for sure you're guaranteed 3 up to 5, and who knows, maybe 6. Does that sound right to you?
I think they'll get 5. If the line is set at 4.5, I would take the over because I think they get 5. I think they get Baltimore. I think they get Philly. I think they get Detroit. I think they get San Francisco, and I think they get Seattle. I think those 5 all happen, and I think that a 6th one is not totally out of the realm of possibility either. 4, maybe you kick one of the NFC West games to a regular 125 start, but I think they're going to get 5.
Yeah, it's a feature year for the Rams. Totally agree. But coming up next, PFF dropped their off-season grade for the Rams. We'll reveal that next on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay, Travis, so PFF, they dropped their grades for the 2025 offseason, and they gave the Rams a B+. So a B+ for the Rams. They pointed out, of course, continuing their relationship, renewing their vows with Matthew Stafford. Bringing in Devontae Adams, essentially replacing Cooper Kupp with Devontae Adams. You also have a really nice draft class that has upside guys like Terrence Ferguson, Josiah Stewart, Chris Paul, and I think Poona Ford too wasn't mentioned, but still I think that was a major thing too. B+, I think it was an A, to be honest with you, like just kind of how I feel about it, but B+ is totally fine as well.
Yeah, I think B+ is about right. I'm glad you brought up Poona Ford. I think that's a player that we're going to be, pleasantly surprised with this season. He's a proven NFL player. It gives them some depth. It gives them some optionality on that defensive line that I think is really good. But here's what they got. They got a quarterback. I know he's been here a long time, so it's not like new, but they got that squared away, and he's a very good one, so that's a huge mark. You picked up a wide receiver that could potentially be a huge difference maker in Devontae Adams. That's a big plus. I think the only reason it's not an A, Doug, if I had to guess at it, is that they didn't pick in the first round. I think had they selected a player in the first round, it probably kicks it from where it is, a B+ into that A range, but that they traded out of that, grabbed another first round pick for this offseason or next draft, or to trade for Trey Hendrickson or whatever it is that they decide to do. That I think maybe that's why they didn't get that A, because they didn't pick there. But I think you'd have to be a pretty, negative person, pretty cynical person. And by the way, that's typically me. I see the black cloud, not the silver lining, but I really like what the Rams did this year. I think that they're in a terrific spot.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. A classic, for sure.
That's
no doubt about it. I'm all about that too. But I will say for me, the reason it's kind of like a dramatic A is because if Stafford was a Giant right now, if Stafford was on the Raiders right now, it'd be like an F minus. You're kicked out of school. Right, like it's over for you. But the fact that you continue that, even though I think that it wasn't as much of an option as it was made to be, kind of in the media early on, but still, I mean, you lose your franchise quarterback, then you know that it's an absolute failure on every single level. I will say that if you want to make the case for me to give it a B+, it would be, I'm kind of giving them an A, because I still think that they are going to. It's like they haven't taken the final yet, but they've gotten like A's on all the quizzes. They got A on the midterm. They're like turning on all these really good projects. You know what I mean? So they're going to get an A on the final because of how good they've been for the whole semester. It's like, I think they're going to figure out the cornerback position, right? I think that they're going to make a move there via trade in some capacity. And that's kind of why I'm kind of like giving them an A before they've actually taken the final type thing.
I think that if you said to me, by the time we get to the start of the season, is Jalen Ramsey on this team? Probably. I wouldn't bet my car on it, but I think it's probably more likely than not that he ends up here, and I think that fixes a lot of those issues. I think the Rams are in a great spot. I think that they've done a lot of great work in the in free agency, in retaining their own player. We didn't even mention they got Coleman Shelton back. I think that helps the offensive line a great deal, that you take Bo Limmer and he becomes more of a depth piece as opposed to a starter. You put Coleman Shelton back at center. It takes a little off of Matthew Stafford's plate as far as having to make some line calls that maybe he was having to do next year. I think that matters. I think the two things that you really, three, you mentioned one of them, the secondary. I think that's got to get a little better. And you got to hope that Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams are still Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams. If those two guys are both as good as we hope they are, they're going to be in great shape. And then you just kind of throw your hands up in the air and hope to the football gods that you're pretty lucky with injuries, because you got to be. If you're gonna make a run, you got to be lucky with that stuff. And there's no controlling it in LA. There's no controlling it anywhere. You just got to get lucky with some injury stuff. And if they do, and those two guys are as good as we hope that they are, they're going to be really good.
No doubt about it. By the way, what was Travis Rogers' first car? You brought up cars.
It was a Nissan Maxima station wagon, probably vintage 1985 or 6. It was kind of silver blue, and it had one of the first cars that ever had that voice in it to say, "Your lights are on. Your lights are on." If you forgot to turn them off. So, yeah, we named her Joyce.
You don't even have that now. Like,
I know.
He's still ahead of his time.
It was a Nissan Maxima silver station wagon.
Nice, man. 08 Celica for me. But
how about you?
08 Celica, baby. White 08 Celica. Yeah. I had the gross super spoiler on it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, you did.
Fast and the Furious. I'm still in the Fast and the Furious era. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Win's a win. You know what I mean? Hopefully that's what's going to happen for the Rams this year. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.